Thank you, Steve. I'm pleased to be here today to offer a district update, but first I really want to recognize the efforts of the Mountain View Schools Education Foundation. As you heard Steve mention, the foundation has a long history of supporting our schools. And over the years, they've funded a variety of programs. Most recently, that's included things like our ACT testing, the STEAM curriculum, Laurentian Environmental Center, our music instrument program, and our intentional social interaction meetings. These are just a few of the investments that have impacted the lives of our students. And I think it's important to recognize that district leadership values the partnership with the Mountain View Schools Education Foundation and their support of our students. So, what's happening in the school district? Well, to begin with, and on behalf of the Mountain View Public Schools, I want to start with a thank you. And I want to thank our community for demonstrating their support for our students, staff, and schools by approving the school board's bond facilities request this past fall. Last election day, voters approved a $165 million facilities bond by a margin of nearly 3-1. I think the success of that effort told us several things. First, that our community understands the need for additional space in all of our aging schools. Second, that our schools are important to the entire community. Given that some 80% of residents do not currently have students in our schools, it took the support from all residents for our bond to be successful. And finally, it was a clear demonstration that our community is willing to invest in our schools. So today, the most common question I get is, where are the cranes? When will you break ground? Well, to give you a little bit of information in terms of our construction timeline, site teams have now started a multi-year phased approach to adding space to all our schools throughout the district. And currently about 2/3 of our schools have either completed or are currently working on the design phase of this project. That timeline to complete all of our projects will actually take approximately 3 years, but you'll see work start this summer, summer of 2018, but most schools will actually go into a construction phase during next school year and through the summer of 2019. For our larger projects, which are Edgewood, Irondale, and Mounds View High School, the design and construction will actually take multiple years for those projects to complete. So those are some of the operational and physical changes you can expect to see. But I think it's also important to recognize some of the outstanding instructional work that happens every day in classrooms throughout the district. So I thought I would highlight one example, because I could stand up here for hours and tell you about the many wonderful things happening. But this year, I'm pleased to share that we had 3 of our teachers named semifinalists in Minnesota's Teacher of the Year Award. They were Carrie Alaranta, who is an English language arts teacher at our Area Learning Center, Claudia Powers, who is a special education teacher at Irondale, and Bill Suha, who is the band director for Irondale. Now, these 3 outstanding educators were among 43 semifinalists who were selected from a pool of 167 candidates from across the state of Minnesota. Carrie, Claudia, and Bill are great representatives of our school district and truly exemplify all of our employees who go the extra mile for students both inside and outside of the classroom. We're very proud of Carrie, Claudia, and Bill, but we're equally proud of all of our employees who collectively are the Mounds View Public Schools. So with that, I'd again like to thank the Mounds View Schools Education Foundation and everyone who's gathered here today to share a common goal, which is to support the schools that support our students. And as a school district, we have many achievements to be proud of, but none of this happens in isolation. It truly does take a strong community dedicated to supporting its children to make things happen. Now, everyone here has played a role in our success, and we want to thank you for what you've done for our students and our schools. So, thank you all for your support, and thank you for attending today. And at this time, it is my pleasure to be able to introduce 2 of our students who represent our district with pride and optimism. about their futures. We're fortunate to have Julia Hayes, senior from Iredale, and Gabriella Wiest, senior from Mounds View, who've graciously agreed to share their thoughts about their experiences in our schools. And rather than take the time to outline their specific resumes, I will leave it to each of them to tell their story. However, suffice it to say, they represent our district through their participation in athletics, dance, volunteer service, and personally exemplify the spirit of their respective high schools. I can tell you, having sat and talked with them, they are wonderful young women, and neither of them is at all nervous to come out. We had a little rock, paper, scissors to get ready who would go first. So it's my pleasure to invite Julia to the podium at this time.
Thank you for that introduction. I'm Julia Hayes, and I'm a senior at Irondale High School. A little bit about me. I'm the oldest of 7 adopted kids, and we're all very diverse, with coming from many different ethnic backgrounds. Right now, we are currently in 4 different schools in the Mountain School District. But personally, my story started in 4th grade at Pinewood. Prior to that, I went to a small private school, which for me personally wasn't the best experience. I often would wake up in the morning not really looking forward to going to school or finding a way to get out of it. So my parents decided my 4th grade year that we would try going to public school, and it was immediately a better experience. At Pinewood, that was where I was first introduced to track and band, which immediately changed my life. I then went to Edgewood Middle School, which was kind of everything they warned about there. And mean girls and lots of drama, but the teachers and staff helped me through that. The highlights for my middle school was joining the Irondale track team my 7th grade year, and then being able to compete in state as an 8th grader. I also was selected to play in the middle school honor band for the district, which is pretty cool. Fast forward to high school, which really has been the best 4 years of my life. Going into high school, I had already made many friends from the past track season and from soccer that passed in the fall. I really appreciate everything Irondale's done to me. I've been able to play 2 varsity sports, be in band, and stand at the honor roll. I've enjoyed many classes at Irondale. I've been able to take AP courses and college courses, but by far my favorite class is American Sign Language. I constantly find myself signing songs on the radio or trying to talk to my parents from across the room, and them getting annoyed because they don't know what's going on. Another elective that I really enjoyed is band. Band has always been really important to me, and right now I'm currently in the Irondale Symphonic Winds, playing the contrabass clarinet as well as the bass clarinet, switching off depending on what music we're playing. This year I was given the opportunity to cap off my senior year by participating in the Northwest Suburban Conference Honor Band, as well as traveling to Greece to perform and tour over spring break. In addition to the academic and arts, athletics has always been a big part of my life. I did play on the varsity soccer team for 3 years, but I owe a lot of what I have become to the track program. In track, I have been a hurdler, a jumper, and I've ran on the relays, mainly the 4x4. As I mentioned, I started varsity track in 7th grade, thanks to the prompting of Miss Butler. Throughout my years, I owe a lot to many coaches, including coaches like McGrew, Canudala, Butler, Swirsky, Rodefeld, head coach Brandon, who has been with me since 7th grade, and finally, longtime coach Moore, and my hurdle coach, who passed away suddenly in February. I wouldn't be where I am today without him. Thanks to all these coaches, I have been fortunate enough to succeed at the state and conference level. But the biggest accomplishment for me has been the state champion 4x4 team, because it was alongside my teammates. We were the first relay to win the state in the history of Irondale High School. This season, I'm really looking forward to finally getting outside. We've been out on track one day this season, so a lot like most sports, we're anxious to get out there. I'm happy to finally be healthy again after coming out of last season with 5 stress fractures in my foot that we didn't know about until after the state meet. Next year, I plan on running at the University of Minnesota for track and majoring in medical laboratory sciences. Finally, I'd like to thank Mr. Fink for inviting me here. Mr. Fink has been a great addition to our athletic department. It's been my pleasure to speak with all of you, and thank you for your support of the Mountain View School District.
Hello and good afternoon. My name is Gabrielle Louise and I am a senior at Mountain View High School. I have attended the Mountain View Public Schools since I was a kindergartner at Valentine Hills Elementary. I still remember my first day and how nervous I was, but the kindness of my kindergarten teacher enabled me to feel comfortable. As my elementary years went on, I was continued to be blessed with such incredible teachers who supported me and prepared me to move on to middle school. At Highview, I had the opportunity to be involved in more activities and develop new friendships. In 7th grade, I auditioned for an all-girls choir called the Ensemble. In Ensemble, we would sing and dance to show tunes, which was lots of fun and helped boost my confidence. One of my fondest memories was having the opportunity to dance on the football field with the Mountain View performance team with a dance clinic. This experience inspired me to try out for both of the dance teams once I entered high school. The Mountain View performance team and the Vuettes competition team have taught me strong leadership skills and the importance of working alongside others to achieve a common goal. This year, I was voted captain of the Vuettes and helped lead our team to state and our victory at the conference meet. I was also a senior leader of the performance team and helped choreograph both of our dances. These leadership skills have transferred over into my academics and have sparked my interest in becoming an educator to help lead others to reach their goals. This past year, I joined Educators Rising, a group of like-minded individuals who hope to lead the next generation of students to success. In Educators Rising, I work together with other students to learn and practice teaching skills. I am honored to announce that I'm a part of a special partnership between the Mountain View Public Schools and Hamline University. This is an incredible opportunity because this partnership allows me to give back to the Mountain View School District. By financially supporting me through 4 years of college and allowing me to gain my teaching degree, this opportunity will lead me full circle as I begin my teaching career within the district. This is of significant importance to me as a young African-American woman who is the second generation in her family to attend the school district. To my knowledge, not one of us has had the opportunity to have a teacher of color. This is critical as I believe that all people should have a role model that they can not only look up to, but who represents their race. As young people, it is crucial for us to see people of color in leadership roles, not only representing us, but shaping our future generations and ultimately the world. I would especially like to thank Mr. Lennox, Ms. Bruggers, Ms. Storla, Mr. Galvin, and Mrs. Ward for supporting me and giving me this opportunity to become an educator. I would also like to thank the Mountain View School District for giving me this amazing opportunity so that I can become a part of future leaders that will shape this next generation. Thank you.
That's terrific. Thank you, Julia and Gabriella. That was terrific. And I am also thrilled to introduce our keynote speaker, Erin McGillivray. Erin is a 1998 graduate of Mountain View High School. Erin spent the majority of her career working in mission-based service organizations, including 13 years with the U.S. Peace Corps, initially as a health extension volunteer in Kenya, where she trained teachers in HIV/AIDS education and worked with HIV orphans and mentored teenage girls. In her career with the Peace Corps, Erin served as a field-based and regional recruiter, a campus representative, trainer, and now as a national position as a senior placement officer. She initiated a satellite Peace Corps center at the University of Minnesota and piloted in-field training programs, including education of host country national staff in Africa. She's a 3-time recipient of the Award for Sustained Superior Performance. In addition to working with the Peace Corps, Ms. McGillivray has worked with the campaign as a campaign manager for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. She's a volunteer engagement specialist with the Global Citizens Network and has served on a nonprofit board advocating for orphan girls in Africa. Ms. McGillivray contributes a tribute to readiness and passion for her work to both the staff and experiences at the Mountain View schools. I am very pleased to welcome Erin to take the podium and speak to us. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and I just want to echo the thanks to Julia and Gabriella for sharing your stories with us. It's really neat to hear from your vantage point as graduating seniors. It really does bring me back to when I graduated from Mountain View 20 years ago now. I know you didn't think I was quite that old, right? Me neither sometimes. And it's really fun to see so many familiar faces among you today, and I'm so glad that you're here. So I have to say, I was surprised and humbled and certainly honored to be invited to speak today, and I really appreciate the opportunity. Of course, I'd love to hear stories from all of you as well, if we could manage to fit that in today, so hopefully some of that has already gone on at your tables. So thanks again for taking part of your day to hear a bit of my story. So when preparing my remarks, one thing I recognized is that I have a tendency to say yes to things that scare me. Being up here today is a great example of that, so don't be fooled by my seemingly calm nature. I'm just good at pretending. So, however, I haven't always been this way. Believe it or not, I was quite a cautious little child. I was timid and incredibly shy, as captured in these photos here. My mom says that middle photo there that I was sad to be going to preschool that day. In fact, I clearly remember one of the more terrifying moments that I had as a preschooler, and I can still feel it right here in my chest today. So it was for our Christmas pageant, you know, one of those pageants where everybody is assigned a role. Well, my best friend Katie, she happens to be sitting right over there. She's still a foot taller than me, and she was back then too. And I just remember her clinging to her. Yep, check it out later. She's still that much taller than me. So I remember clinging to her through those years and just feeling safer by her side, as you can see here. Now, Katie, she was chosen to be Mary of Mary and Joseph, and she had some actual lines to say in this Christmas pageant. And I was assigned to be a camel. So when the camels came in with the shepherds, I remember we were at the very back of the stage, and I remember cowering in fear back there, and I had this little wooden noise maker that was supposed to sound like the camel's hooves. And that was my role. I had no lines to say, and I was terrified. So today I'm going to share how I evolved from this quiet, scared little girl to the kind of woman that I've become. Now, a spoiler alert here, I definitely have not walked this journey alone. So my parents say I didn't blossom outside of our own home and outside of my close friends until 5th grade when I ran for student council at Island Lake Elementary. And the truth of it is, once I started talking, I never stopped. So it was all pent up in there for 11 years, and it all had to go somewhere, right? So it was also around that time that I got to pick an instrument. And I was already being pegged as someone who would play the flute. You know, short, petite, little girl, she should just play the flute, typical stereotype. But instead, I did what no one expected, and I chose the French horn. I heard it was one of, and yes, that's still Katie next to me there. I heard it was one of the hardest instruments to learn, and my family can attest to that. My dad's loving description of listening to me practice was that it sounded like a dying cow. I also picked the French horn, sorry guys, because it wasn't popular and it seemed fascinating to me with all the tubing and only 3 keys to produce the noise, however, you know, awful it may have sounded at first. Now, when I look back, these are some of the times where I noticed I started to make unexpected choices, and I started to say yes to things that scared me or things that I didn't know whether or not I'd be successful. And I didn't get elected secretary and treasurer of the student council in 5th grade by continuing to be a wallflower. I had to be gregarious and come out of my shell and apparently have this trendy poodle perm too. This role was also the beginning of me learning about leadership and service, reliability, and really just getting a chance to apply real life skills outside of the classroom. and you don't successfully be on the student council or learn the incredibly difficult French horn and stick with it without the support of fantastic teachers and school leaders. I can still remember the principal at Island Lake, Mr. Haas. He was just a kind, warm, gentle soul and encouraging to so many of us. And there were so many other fantastic and fun teachers back then too. So it was through these choices and activities that I not only started to see the benefits of being engaged and the support that came from teachers and other school leaders through that, but I also started to realize that these choices were bringing me to life, more so than that trembling in fear at the back of the stage was doing for me when I was younger. So I learned in 8th grade at Chippewa that you could apply to be on student council as a 9th grader at Mounds View. I went for it. Now, I can't tell you what my high school experience would have been like without student council, but what I can tell you is that being involved with student council was fundamental to my development in so many ways. So first, it helps to understand the caliber of the student council at Mounds View at the time. So our mission included community service, such as large food drives and sock drives, serving at homeless shelters, and then there was the social and school spirit aspect. We put on a number of dances throughout the year. We held a pep fest, we sold concessions at basketball games, we coordinated flower sales among students. We also tried to make it a better place for staff. We gave the cafeteria workers and the custodians the day off, and we worked in their place. And we did bus driver appreciation. We held open forums so that students could come in and connect with the administrators, and the list goes on. In fact, this student council was selected as one of 5 in the state as Outstanding Council of the Year for 13 different years in the 90s and those surrounding years. So student council wasn't just an activity at Mounds View, it was a lifestyle. And for me personally, I was on student council all 4 years of my high school career. So junior year, I was elected junior class president and helped to plan prom with 2 other class officers that you can see here. We learned event planning skills, decision making, budgeting, and more. And then for my senior year, I asked my next door neighbor, Chris Johnson. We've been on the student council together since our freshman year. I asked him if he would run for co-president with me, and lucky me, he said yes, and off we went. And I know his parents are here today, and I'm sure that they remember the fact that student council was now not only a lifestyle, but it became our part-time job. So together, Chris and I ran weekly meetings with 40 council members. Each meeting had a tight agenda, notes were taken, we followed the parliamentary procedure. Beyond that, we met with an executive board of upperclassmen outside of school time. We learned conflict resolution, problem solving, how to value diverse perspectives. We had a lot of fun. We also tried things that failed, and there were tears, probably mostly from me, but there were definitely tears. Now, did I know before becoming co-president whether or not it would be successful? No. Did it scare me? Yes, of course it did. But did I believe that I could do it, or at least try? I must have, because I went for it. So here's where I want to emphasize that although I have a tendency to step into things that scare me, I am much less likely to do so unless I feel like I have support. And that support obviously comes from many different places. I grew up with a fantastic set of parents, really great friends, coaches, other adults in my life, and those people that we spend a lot of time with as students are teachers. So in comes Mr. Cody, sandwiched in the middle of us here in this picture. He was a language arts teacher at Mounds View at the time and the advisor of this award-winning student council. Now, as a timid 9th grader, I honestly wasn't sure what to make of this man, fondly referred to as Cody. He seemed intimidating to me. He was always kind of rushing around, and he had this dry, sarcastic sense of humor that I just didn't quite understand at that age. But it didn't take long for me to realize how lucky we were to have him as our guide. Now, I could write a whole separate speech about Cody, but what I can tell you in short is that this man lived and breathed student council. He was passionate about moving us beyond Mounds View and encouraged us to get involved at the division and state levels. And it was his tireless effort that provided continuity for the council year after year after year. So here I am talking about my 4 years and the impact it had on me on the council. And this was Mr. Cody's life for the 28 years that he was the advisor of student council. 28 years. Just imagine how many lives he has positively impacted. And he didn't tell us what to do or how to go about doing it, but he was somehow able to strike that balance between providing guidance while encouraging autonomy and creative thinking, helping each individual leader to find their own strengths. Sounds like what you'd want out of a great job supervisor, right? And that's pretty much what he was, but much more fatherly and endearing. So you're probably not surprised that Cody has remained my friend and mentor. He taught me to believe in myself way back starting when I was 14 years old, and he still patiently listens to me today as I work through challenges and reminds me again that I can choose my own path. So what has that path looked like? It certainly hasn't been straight, and it definitely has not always followed an upward trajectory. But the community service aspect of the student council resonated so much with me at the time, it shot me off in that direction after high school. I started to develop a sense of life outside of my privileged, homogenous suburb. It was a wonderful place to grow up, full of opportunity, and I'm so thankful for that. But I was able to take off my blinders through these experiences with student council, and I began to see and yearn for a bigger frontier. So my older brother went to Gustavus, and my mom had gone there too. And though I applied there and I was tempted to follow the family tradition, I decided to go where no one else from Moundsview was going, and a place I actually hadn't heard of before visiting, the University of Puget Sound in Tacoma, Washington. And while there, I continued to devote my energy to mission-based organizations. I interned twice at the American Red Cross, and I was the first marketing intern at a then-new Museum of Glass in Tacoma, Washington. And then I decided to study abroad in Nepal my junior year, and I remember my parents saying, "Why can't you just go to London or somewhere in Europe?" And there were a lot of choices why I chose Nepal. But one of them was that nobody else was doing it, and I was also really drawn to the experiential education aspect of this program that I signed up to go with. So prior to living in Nepal for 5 months, and you can see me pictured here with various homestay families that I lived with while there, but prior to that, I had never even been outside of North America, so why not just pick the furthest place away? And it was there in Nepal that I conducted a month-long independent study project, getting to know the beggars of Kathmandu and their motivations and their life stories. So I spent a lot of time in that upper left picture that's called Bodhnath Stupa, getting to know the beggars that hung out around there. And I went on to befriend one man in particular, Vishnu, who you can see here. He'd fallen into begging after losing his leg. In Nepal at the time, that rendered him useless in the village where he lived, so he fell into begging. So I traveled back to his home village with him to help him and his family start to raise goats, hopefully to turn a profit from their milk and offspring. So it was through my time in Nepal that I heard about the Peace Corps, and I wanted to keep making connections outside of my own bubble. So as mentioned previously, I served in the Peace Corps in Kenya for 2 years, where I trained teachers in the schools in HIV and AIDS education, and it was a subject I actually knew pretty much nothing about before getting there, and frankly, I wasn't even comfortable talking about it at first either. So I had to learn to do that, and then train teachers who were older than me in a culture that was different than my own. So I continued to find myself building a path towards things I just didn't know much about before getting there, because I knew I would learn so much, and that these choices would keep bringing me to life. So then, as mentioned, I went on to spend most of my career working for the Peace Corps, and in the times in between working there, I worked with some nonprofits here in the Twin Cities, and I continued the service mission-based focus that had started at Moundsview. So working for Peace Corps, I get to encourage others to serve, and I've had the opportunity to be inspired by and interview over 1,000 applicants for Peace Corps service. Currently, as a placement officer, I not only interview applicants, but I also get to invite them to serve, which is such an honor. I've sent groups of volunteers to Botswana, Belize, South Africa, Mozambique, Mali, Colombia, and I've helped with some other countries as well. I also got to help create and pilot a new cross-training program, which I was then able to take to Botswana and deliver to my colleagues there. You can see their smiling faces here, and they were such a pleasure to work with. And if I didn't love living here so much, I would probably have stayed with them. Throughout my career, I've also been fortunate to get to build on that pioneering spirit through things like being selected to independently open the Satellite Peace Corps office at the University of Minnesota, or at one point being hired into a newly created role at a nonprofit and then spending a couple of years building that out. I was also invited to take on a role at my church, leading a task I had never done before. And when I told them that I would do it, I said, "I'm saying yes because it scares me." And that's where I coined that phrase. And in my current role at Peace Corps, I was the first in my department to work remotely from home. So our office and the majority of my colleagues are located in Washington, D.C. And once they saw that this telework, working from home model could work, there's now a whole group of us working remotely from all over the nation. And it's with this same spirit that in my personal life, I found myself summiting Mount Kilimanjaro and traveling through 7 different African countries overland in public transportation for 10 weeks from Nairobi, Kenya to Cape Town, South Africa. That was a journey right there. And then when I got back to the Twin Cities, doing things like signing up for my first triathlon when I couldn't even swim a lap in the pool without gasping for air. It's these experiences at the edge of my comfort zone that have defined me. But, you know, I would be fooling you if I didn't share some of the bumps along the way. I have also learned some really tough and treasured lessons starting back at Mounds View. Now, I'm guessing Mr. Cartwright has no idea the influence that he had on me, but here I am 20 years later sharing this story that I've reflected on many times since. Now, Mr. Cartwright was not only the head tennis coach at Mounds View, he was also a physics teacher. Me, being someone who struggled with math in elementary school and certainly has no gift for abstract thinking or spatial reasoning, I have no idea why I signed up for accelerated physics my senior year. I recall it had something to do with my brother had taken the class the year before me and he had done well, and I had a bunch of insanely smart friends that were taking all of the hard classes, and I thought, you know, this will look good on my college applications. So you can probably guess how this goes, but I can tell you this. Accelerated physics was the hardest class that I ever took before college. And my grade that first semester showed it. It was the lowest grade I'd ever received in my entire career as a student, and it was bringing my GPA down, and I was about to apply for colleges. So what did I do? Of course, I went to Mr. Cartwright, and I asked him if I could please drop the class. What happened next is the part that I've obviously never forgotten. He said no. An option I hadn't prepared for or even considered. And then he looked me in the eyes, and I can still picture where we were standing in his room in this moment, and he said, "You're about to go to college. You need to learn how to fail." And I was like, "Ugh, fail, huh?" I'm pretty sure I cried right then and there. Maybe I held it together, I don't know. I'm sure there were tears welling up in my eyes. And I remember being annoyed and just not knowing how I was going to survive the following semester in accelerated physics again. So the next semester, not only did I visit Mr. Cartwright in his office to get help, but I also summoned the help of my foot taller than me, brainiac best friend Katie from the preschool days, and she graciously walked me through the things I didn't understand. Admittedly, this sometimes happened during our yearbook class, after we completed our assignments, of course, for the day, Mr. Troji. So I struggled my way through that second semester, and guess what? Somehow, I got an A-, and I'm the person who kept this report card. I told you it had an impact on me. And you know what Mr. Cartwright's decision to not let me quit meant for him? It meant that he had to put up with me visiting his office all semester, crying and just not understanding the material. I'm sure that was a lot of fun for him. And he had to make the choice to not give up on me too. And it turns out he was right, darn it. The transition to college was really hard. And then, of course, adult life gets in there and throws you curveballs too. And I learned that we don't always get to choose the scary things. Sometimes the scary things choose us, and we have no choice but to deal with it. So some of my curveballs have included getting laid off at the age of 28 from my first ever and favorite job, which was the first time I worked for Peace Corps, when they decided to close the office we had in Minneapolis. After that, I took a large pay cut for a job that turned out to be not the right fit, and I only lasted there for 10 months. Then I went on to take an even bigger financial hit, working part-time for hourly pay with no benefits, and I was underemployed, and that was followed by a brief period of unemployment. But these were conscious choices, granted they were circumstantial too, but conscious choices that I could thankfully afford at the time. And I was in search of the right fit that would help me come to life again. So thankfully in 2012, I found my way back to working for Peace Corps, but very shortly after starting that role, I ran into health issues, which led to surgery and taking more than a month off of work. This triggered then mental health struggles that were new to me in my 30s and something I had never dealt with before. But through some challenging incidents during my tenure on student council and during that darn physics class, I also learned perseverance and resilience. And I learned that it's really hard to succeed in the tough times if you attempt to do it alone. So going back to my time in the Mountain View District, I previously mentioned the support of the principal at Ogden Lake, the co-officers and the co-president I had a pleasure to work with, other remarkable students who could be up here telling their fascinating stories today too, friends that helped me study, and of course, teachers and advisors. There are so many more of them that I could tell stories about if we had more time today. But it's not lost on me that stepping into what scares me, choosing the unexpected, evolving from a timid child to a pioneering spirit, it's not lost on me that I didn't get there alone. Far from it. In fact, one of my favorite sayings that helps me remember this comes from a line in the poem Ulysses by Alfred Lord Tennyson, which, by the way, happens to be about a king who had both good and bad times once he ventured out and traveled the world, and he thrived on a life of adventure. And one line in the poem says this: I am a part of all that I have met, but I like to add on, and they are all a part of me. I am a part of all that I have met, and they are all a part of me, many of whom are in this room today. Or another way to think about it is, you can take the woman out of Mounds View, but you can't take Mounds View out of the woman. You can never erase the impact that others have on you. We all carry this with us forever. And I feel lucky that I started to learn this at a young age. So here I have this book that Mr. Cody gave me as a graduation present. It is Dr. Seuss's All the Places You'll Go. I'm sure a number of you are familiar with it. So in it, he included a heartfelt note. And this illustrates that he began to show me and teach me the importance of community way back then. So listen to part of his note to me. Erin, you are off to great places, I don't doubt that. No doubt you will face problems on the way. Whatever mountains you wish to move, you will. You've proven that. Just remember, there are always people in your life to help you. So go out and find those mountains of yours. I think I've done some of that. Never quit dreaming. Thanks for being a part of my life. I am always here for you. And sure enough, he's still here, like right there. Now, I'm not the only one in this room who can look back and see who has supported me and helped me grow along the way. We can all do that. So you got to hear about some of the ways that I was shaped at Mounds View, but what about you? However or wherever you were shaped, who was there to support you and who do you have to thank? Now, instead of encouraging you to remember to go and think about this later, because I'm sure you're all running off to your next thing after this, I'm going to invite you here as we wrap up to do this together right now. Now, I'm not going to make you share with the people at your table, don't worry. But what I do want to invite you to do is take a moment with me, whether it's closing your eyes and visualizing or maybe jotting something down. Just take a silent moment and think about who supported you, especially in your past as a student. Or maybe what's more relevant for you today is thinking about someone who's played that role in the life of a child or a student that you know. So I'm going to be quiet for a moment and I invite you to join me. And if you're uncomfortable with silence, I promise this will only take 20 minutes. So let's take a minute in our togetherness right here from our chairs And send off a thank you to that person or people you're thinking about, the ones who provided support and encouragement in your life or in the life of someone else that you know. Okay, sorry to interrupt your thoughts. I hope you found yourself in some positive memories through doing that and can continue that later maybe. Thank you for trying that with me. And for you overachievers, if the person you were thinking of can be tracked down, I encourage you to reach out and thank them personally. I feel grateful that I got to do that live with you here today. So with that, thank you again for your gracious attention and thank you to the Foundation for the opportunity.